Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day just to click on this video. This is the first kind of video that I'm making like this ever, and this was just a wonderful opportunity to, I think, pursue a video like this and post on my channel about things I really enjoy, like this movie. And I just really wanted to just thank you for taking the time out of your day just to watch it and to hear me ramble about it because I have a lot to say. I am a lifelong Alien and Predator fan. Predator was the very first film I remember watching ever as a kid. Uh, I remember the following day, I was so immersed by the movie that I actually didn't really know how to read yet. And I wanted to watch it again. I knew there was like an aider, predator to the word. And through the process of trying to find it on demand, I ended up watching Terminator 1 by accident because Arnold Schwarzenegger was in both of them, and I was watching it. And I was like, "Oh, I finally found it!" But I ended up watching it, and I was like, "Wow, that was amazing!" But it wasn't Predator, and I ended up going down a rabbit hole. We had a Blockbuster that me and my family would go to all the time. I ended up watching Terminator 2, Terminator 3, Aliens, Alien 3 Resurrections, Predator 2, until I finally got back to Predator. My dad had come home from the store and we had watched all these movies together, and he found a holographic sleeve cover version, 1080p DVD Predator 1987, and it was my very first copy of Predator, and I've had it and I've taken it everywhere. I still have it now. I love it. It's a relic of mine that I cherish forever. And this franchise just means so much to me for that reason. My dad ended up buying me the omnibuses of Alien versus Predator. Do you guys remember what Borders is? That old bookstore before Barnes and Nobles took over it? My dad had bought me volumes 1 and 2 of the Alien versus Predator omnibuses, and they were my first comics ever. Before I touched a Marvel or a DC comic, I was all over the Alien Predator Dark Horse comics. So I love this stuff, man. I really engrossed myself into it, and it's a franchise that I knew would always have potential. I was there for every game. I played all of them. I've emulated all of them. Uh, and I'm happy that movies like Predator Badlands is exploring the lore that I was in love with from the start. And I think that's a perfect segue to start going into the movie because I have so much to say about Predator Badlands as a film. I think it's going to be a very popular film, judging by the online interaction and the kind of way that everyone's kind of speaking about it. I mean, if you go online, right, if you're watching John Campea, any outlet that talks about, this kind of thing, Mr. H, AVP Galaxy, everyone's talking about it and they're nothing but positive. And I want to echo those same sentiments. I think this is a very great Predator film. I'm not very stingy of a Predator fan. I love Predator 1. I love Predator 2. I love Predators. I actually really like Alien versus Predator, but I grew up with it as a kid. I wasn't there for it. I didn't have anticipations for it in the theaters. I didn't get to see it in theaters. My first AVP movie was Predators 2010. And uh, I know some people like Tony from Hack the Movies feels differently. Like he hates Alien versus Predator because it genuinely like had an expectation that wasn't met for him. And for me, I watched the film and I loved it. And I had the comic, like I said, because of the omnibuses, and I loved the comic. And I had both, and I loved both. And I know not a lot of people agree with that, but that was the case for me. That was genuinely the case for me. So I love AVP. I have an AVP shirt from Cavity Color. I love it. I watch it all the time. One of my favorite Predators is Celtic Predator. If I extend that list, Wolf is in there too, but Celtic is one of my favorites. Bro, obviously I'm a super fan, so I have my go-to answer is Broken Tusk. And what's cool about Broken Tusk is he has a lot of similarities with Deck who, we're gonna get into. Like, this is very much a spoilers deep dive review. But this introduction is long enough. Like I said, I know this video is going to be long in general, so I'm probably gonna have a way for you to skip all of this mumbo jumbo just so we could get started. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. All right, so I have my iPad out here and we're, obviously going to get into it. But Predator Badlands, uh, it's a very different movie, man. Predator, I won, to some, it's one of the greatest action films ever made. Like that. That's it. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's one of the greatest action movies ever made. That's exactly what I feel like, and that's what many others feel like as well. Alien is like a very sophisticated horror action, and it's the greatest of them all, honestly. And Predator is the greatest of that action genre, and those two stand tall, in my opinion. And Predator Badlands, in my opinion, uh, just tops the action that Predator in 1987 has, and it does it in this fantastical Disney early Marvel action adventure cinematography type of way. And I say that with really good intentions. I know that some people have been throwing it's a Marvel movie with a negative connotation out online, and I wouldn't use the negative connotation. I actually would use it as a strength. It actually makes this movie feel very organically like well done. Like it just feels good. I feel like when Deck is moving and like doing all kinds of action and the choreography is hitting, and I could see there's CG doubles. It feels good. It feels good. I mean, I have an eye for it, obviously, because I work in VFX and post production and coordinating. So I see what a CGI to, like a double would be, but it looked great. Like it looked wonderful. It truly looked wonderful. And we get some like wonderful action shots of Deck, and we get one really early in the film, so we can just dive right into it. I'm gonna go through the entire movie and my thoughts throughout the entire movie, and I have the notes right in front of me. We're gonna do this kind of like how Grace Randolph does her stuff, and I'm just gonna tell you the film and my thoughts as we go on. But I'm excited to touch on the action specifically because we get a lot of action from the start. But the film starts off, and let me just drink this water here real quick. And the film starts off on Yautja Prime, if you can believe that. Uh, it took us a really long time for us to see Yautja Prime again, since Alien versus Predator Requiem. If you're a watcher, a viewer of the John Campea show, or a fan of Robert Meyer Burnett, it's one of his favorite moments of Alien vs. Predator Requiem. If you're a fan of Adam from Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, it's his personal, one of his favorite movies is AVPR and Wolf Predator, and him doing what he does, dude. Like his introduction in Yautja Prime is just a really great first introduction to a Predator for a lot of us in the fan base who are really, really into it. And I can agree. Wolf Predator was my first NECA action figure when NECA first got the license way back when, and I still have it. I have him and the Pred Alien, and since then they never made either of them again. So he's considered rare, but it's a really great uh, movie for the niche, right? And we haven't seen Yautja Prime since then. It's been a really long time. And we get a really good look at it too when Predator Badlands opens up. We get coastal shorelines with Deck, with his hood on and his cape, his cowl. He looks like a prince almost. He looks very elegant with that cape and cowl on. He kind of reminds me of Kylo Ren in a way. And he also kind of reminds me of character designs like Rain from Mortal Kombat. But he and his brother Quay, who was shown in the marketing, they look very royale in their armor for Predator. Clearly, right? Because if you've been a super fan for a while, we're used to very straight edge and soft masks like the Jungle Hunter and the City Hunter and so on. And they're training masks. I think they're training masks. That's what someone told me at San Diego Comic-Con during the activation for the Predator experience at the Hard Rock. But if it is a training mask, it's a very elegant looking training mask, and that's what they're wearing from the very start of the film, and it's really Prince look. Like it looks great on deck. Like he looks mysterious. He looks very slender from the start. Like most predators in these other films, especially in AVP, like they're huge, right? Wolf is pretty slender, but a lot of them are massive, right? And the one from Prey, he has like an 8 pack or like a 16 pack. So Deck is really small from the bat. Like you can just tell, right, in his stature, even with the cape and cowl and all the armor on. And the first device we actually see him use from the start is the zip line. He uses this zip line. And at first, I truly thought it was the plasma caster on his shoulder. It looked like it was gonna be used as a shoulder cannon. It almost started off activating like one too, and it launches itself. It pierces onto the side of like wherever he wants to be. So in this case, it was the side of a mountain, and it pierces itself behind him onto the ground as well. And kind of like a zip line in Fortnite, it just kind of zips him to where he wants to be. And he walks into a cave and he fights his brother Quay. And I also forgot to mention, even before then, we get a really nice prey reference, really, off the bat. We see little creatures and critters in the opening of Yautja Prime eat each other. Predators to prey, kind of like the shot in Prey with the snake and the, if I can remember correctly, I think it was a rat or some sort of scorpion, and it kept going up and up and up the food chain up to the predator. And in this case, we do it again, and it's a really nice, subtle visual reference to Prey that I actually really appreciated, and it looked incredible too. Like the creatures on Yautja Prime look flawless. There's no real creatures that the fan base gravitates towards. I'm sure there's like a database of them from like the Dark Horse comics, but it was just nice to see some refreshing creatures of sorts, right? It kind of reminds me of the first time I watched Pandora in the Avatar films, and when I was reintroduced to them when I was watching The Way of Water. But I was glad to see it from the point of view of a Predator film. But like I said, once we go back to where I left off, he fights Quay in a great action adventure like scene in the beginning of the film inside a cave that's really jagged and rough looking. And it's amazing, man. It like I mentioned earlier in the video, off the bat, you're getting these incredible VFX doubles for Quay and Deck when they're fighting, and they look amazing. The way they move, it feels like a Predator film properly, right? Because I mean, I'm a super Predator, like, mega diehard fan, but one thing for sure, we don't see the Predators move the way we see them move in like the games in our movies, and that's no secret. But we're finally getting that actually once you're watching Badlands, and it's really, really nice, actually. Like, I had a really huge smile on my face. I was like, wow, I'm really watching them move like Black Panther and shit. And it's incredible. It's almost refreshing because it kind of feels like I'm watching this for like the first time, like a predator move the way they should be moving, like hopping on trees and the sides of like rocks. But uh it was wonderful in the adventure that it was in the context that it was in. It was incredible. And Quay ends up victorious, right? Like he ends up like piercing uh Deck's cloak onto a rock, and he breaks the rock, and he does the shot from the trailer where he's falling into a chasm and he loses his mask. And he loses his mask for the entire film. He never once puts it back on. I'm just gonna say that right now. And did it bother me? A little bit. Uh and I'll tell you why later in the film review, why it bothered me. But at this point, it didn't. Up until later when it does. But at this point, no, it doesn't bother me that we don't see him wear the mask again. But he loses it. And then we get a really nice one-to-one with Quay and Deck and the sparing of his life. And we've seen this shot and scene already play out in the marketing. Quay talking to Deck about being a warrior and honor and, hunting. And we do get a lot of that. We get a lot of their culture off the bat. And one thing that I absolutely noticed once they started talking to each other was the language and the VFX in their mouths. It was amazing, dude. It was breathtaking. It kind of felt like I was watching Rise and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes for the first time, and how you were captivated with the apes and their visual language of their lips moving and speaking, and the amazing performance by Andy Serkis, right? Uh, I was amazed watching the performance done with Deck and Quay in Predator Badlands, and it almost felt like I was watching something like that unfold again in front of me. But like their mandibles, the way they move, the way they interact, the way they show emotion, it hits you like a train off the bat, dude. It was amazing. I was captivated. I was sitting there watching it, and it was breathtaking. I didn't know what to say, dude. I was genuinely shook as a Predator fan. I didn't know how to feel either about like a really in-depth language, because I thought we already had one, considering I thought we had one when I was playing AVP 2010. I could have sworn we heard Predator language in that game, or even before that too. But sure, let's redo the language, and I'm happy to say that off the bat and throughout the entire film. Yeah, it's awesome. The clicking, the sounds, all of it was very Predator. And it worked. It worked so well. And I'm so happy that worked, because it really had to sell this movie, in my opinion. But you get that with the early interactions between Deck and Quay. And it's great. It's very seamless. It's beautiful. I love hearing their interactions together. It just feels so good. And this is where I thought we were going to get an alien cameo. But Deck and Quay evidently go into Quay's ship, and they talk about how Deck needs to do a hunt in order to be accepted into the clan. And that's said very early into the film. And they look at options, and off the bat, Deck wants to fight the Kalisk, which is the big bad of the movie. Like, that's the big hunt, is this giant creature with spikes, and it kind of looks like a massive ape, a big space ape. And uh Quay tells him that it's dangerous to hunt the Kalisk. Like it's something that even father fears, which is, the first mention of like their father. Like, he just says it straight up. He's like, it's like father fears it as well. And Deck is very stubborn. Like, he off the bat, he's like, I want to hunt the Kalisk, and I will. And during this interaction, they actually get like this little ping in their sonar, and it's father on his way to go talk to both of them, I guess. And this is where it plays out, the scene in all the marketing, right? Where father ends up killing Quay, and Quay sends Deck out into his ship to escape before father could get to him too. And that starts Deck's journey to hunt Kalisk in this new world that, he has no idea where he's in, but it's this massive, almost game-like reserve. And that scene that has already been talked to death already on the internet, that was shown in San Diego, the first 20 minutes. It's great, dude. It's crazy. The death of Quay is heavy hitting. But the emotions spread by Deck, which has been shown already all over Twitter, because I think it was shown already, like the scene where Deck is like held down by these red lasers that father shoots underneath him, and he's showing this wonderful emotion, dude. It's truly captivating, like watching the Predator emote the way that it was emoting. And he beheads Quay. He beheads Quay, cuts his arm off, and while Quay is holding his own arm, he shoots. He activates Dex. What's it called? The zip line that we mentioned earlier, and it zips him into the ship, and he activates the ship, and the ship shoots out into the sky. And throughout all that, father beheads Quay. And it's a really painful scene, and it's great. It plays out wonderfully. It feels like a gladiator in space. That's kind of what it is, gladiator in space. But the next scene is really fun once I look at the notes here. The next scene, we get a really cool free fall scene, kind of in the vein of Predators 2010, where Deck is like free falling straight up, like Fortnite style, free falling. And he's in this glass dome, and we cut to the scene in the trailers where he's like in this like little hover bike thing crashing into a bunch of branches and trees until he lands on the floor, and we get this wonderful shot of him just like super angry and building up this frustration and then letting out a roar, and he's pounding on the ground. That whole scene is awesome in IMAX. I jaw on the floor watching that whole scene. And it was really cool because I got flashbacks of my first time seeing Predators 2010 in a theater. I was super young and my dad took me, and it was just like breathtaking. Like the opening shot of just Adrian Brody free falling, freaking out, trying to activate the device on his chest, and it does, and then it lands, and you get the title card Predators, sorry. And in this movie, Deck is free falling. You get that shot from the marketing, and right after he lands and he pounds the ground, he goes straight to it, dude. Like he puts his medipack on like a massive boulder, his spear, the bow, everything. Now, sadly, we don't ever see him use things like the bow or the medipack. He ends up using something from the medipack, but we never see him really open it, which kind of sucks because I like seeing the Predator open it in Predator 1 and in Predator 2. You never see them do it in Predators, but it's fun when they do, like, open it in like a really fun way. Like Wolf does it in AVPR, but none of that. But right off the bat, once he's like, arming himself, he has a really cool like little montage, G.I. Joe style, of him just like arming up. But really quickly, the trees end up from the marketing, like attacking him, the branches. And it's a great scene, dude. He's like fighting them, slicing them up, cutting them. But he loses all of his fun devices off the bat because of the tree branches. They kind of like chase him up to a boulder outside of the woods that he's in. And he gets out just in time for them to not be able to reach him. And he turns around and he does a great look at this cliffside of the entire little planet that he found himself in. And you see all kinds of crazy things. The first thing my eyes saw that I pointed to my far left, were these weird gooey worm things hanging off of like under a cliff. And it's crazy. It's weird looking, right? They're kind of jiggling, and you see what look like pterodactyl alien monster things, and then boom, title card, 20th Century presents Predator Badlands, and you get the beautiful Hollywood style title card. You get the little stuff in the bottom and the top, and it's great. I love the way that Dan Trachtenberg title cards these Predator films. I love the way Prey was done. I got to see Prey in a theater, by the way. Like, that's how big of a mega fan is. And watching that title card blew me away, right? 20th Century Studios presents Prey. 20th Century Studios presents Predator Badlands. It's wonderful, dude. It feels like an early Dark Horse comic book, right? Dark Horse presents Alien versus Predator. And it feels good. It gives it this sense of it just gives it a sense of like elegance, in my opinion. And it's a type of delivery that I don't think many IPs can do, that really excites me the way Predator can do it. So that's the first entry of the film. That's our title card. So you get a pretty beefy opening to the movie, and I love it, dude. Like, it starts off strong. It starts off gory. It starts off relentless. It starts off with a lot of expectation. Like, for movies where it's like the hook tells you the rest of the movie, this movie's great, dude. It's got a wonderful pace. And I know a lot of people were iffy on the runtime. They were making that vocal on Twitter. But it's great, dude. It's magnificent. It's wonderful. And it hits hard. That's what's important. So let's move on. some of my favorite moments of the entire film actually kind of play out in this small section that I'm about to talk about right now. And this part's great, dude, because the very first scene is one of my favorite jokes of the entire movie, actually. It's just Deck sitting on like a rock, and he's holding this worm, and this worm kind of looks like this really weird caterpillar with a bunch of these uh like bubbles on it, and the bubbles start growing and they glow orange and red, and they get thick and thick and thick, and then Deck kind of chucks it over to behind his shoulder, and it blows up like a grenade, like a massive explosion. And then it cuts back to Deck, and he just goes, "Oh, that's what it does." It's just really funny, and you get a lot of that visual comedy in this movie, like a lot of it. And some people online aren't big fans of it. I'm a fan of it. Predator 1987, that little perfect movie we were just talking about, right? Fucking hilarious, dude. Sexual Tyrannosaur. Dude, that shit's fucking hilarious. I didn't know what the fuck it meant. Predator 2? Dude, he's in his commissioner's office, right? Or whatever, like his boss. He's like, we'll suck my dick and put my thumb up my ass. Like what? Like that Predator 2 is fucking hilarious, dude. And Predator Badlands funny as shit, dude. Really good stuff, man. Like it's really good comedy too. And it's not that cringe like he's right behind me, isn't he? Nah. It's funny like visual gag style. And I love it, dude. Like this movie doesn't have a lot to say from a dialogue perspective, and that's wonderful because I truly think like this movie doesn't need stuff like that. But you know, I'm glad that the comedy is just really well thought out. And that moment specifically is one of my favorite moments. But then you see him just adventuring around the island, right? The planet, and he's running across like all these weird worms that shoot thorns and thorn shooting plants and all these crazy creatures and monsters in this alien world until we actually get to Elle Fanning's character, Tessa. Thea. Thea. Thea is in a really interesting spot, actually. We get Deck running into Thea uh, when she's stuck in what looks like to be just a bunch of branches, just a bunch of random branches. If you've ever played Blasphemous and you kind of see like the main character kind of turn into like a tree and kind of embed itself in a bunch of branches, you'll know what I mean. It's exactly what her character is like. Thea's just in a bunch of branches and she's stuck. And she's watching Deck kind of like walk through this massive valley field of a bunch of thorn shooting plants, the one we see in the trailers, right? And she yells out to him something in Yautja. And really quickly, she calibrates herself in order to speak English in what's called like a universal language. And right off the bat, dude, like boom, setting up the English speaking to Yautja, like how it works. And it's super, super easy. I kind of expected that, actually. Something like that to just kind of like start off the bat. And I'm glad that it did. And it's really cool how it works. Like just watching her eyes roll and flicker the way that Andy's did in Alien Romulus. It's a really nice callback and thing that they just kind of share. And watching Wayland Yutani pop up throughout this movie was awesome. I had such a fun time watching that. It was beautiful. I can't tell you the level of happiness I had actually having it. It kind of felt like what Marvel heads felt like when Nick Fury was walking around the MCU during like phase 1. That's how it feels like for me as a lifelong fan seeing Wayland Yutani appear the way it did in Predator Badlands. So it was great. It was awesome. And you see it first all over Thea, right? You have it on both of her shoulders on whatever her outfit is, the Wayland Yutani logo. And really off the cuff, she's talking to Deck about it. Like she's like, I'm with Wayland Yutani, blah, blah, blah. And you could tell that Deck doesn't care. Like he has no idea what she's talking about. He wants to just move forward, but he can't. And he's, getting shot at by these thorns. And Thea is telling him, like, these thorns are poisonous. They're going to paralyze you. And they do end up paralyzing Deck. And she's like, look, cut me down and I'll give you the antidote. And the whole time they're doing this pterodactyl-like alien is tossing rocks over around Deck to activate these thorns that are shooting out of the plants. And they end up hitting Deck, and Deck ends up falling, and he's going unconscious, and he tosses this beautiful shuriken. We've never seen a shuriken like this in Predator before. We've had the disc, we've had the shurikens from Alien versus Predator, AVPR. We've had different variations of shurikens throughout games and lore, but this shuriken is new. It's really cool. It kind of looks like the Matrix of Solitude from Transformers. It's got a weird yin yang to it, but it's cool. And he tosses it over to Thea, and we get that cool shot from the trailer where Thea tosses her half up to the pterodactyl and guts it. And we see a bunch of alien blood in the corner. And then she looks at the camera POV with a smile. And it's cute. We get Deck waking up, and then starts our partnership and journey with these two, right? And it's great. It's organically done. I really like Thea's character from the start. Some might have an issue with it from this point on. I do not, but I could see why others may. But it's wonderful, the relationship they have. Basically, what happens is Thea convinces Deck to take her with him on this journey to find the Kalisk, because Thea convinces Deck that she is a tool, and the Yautja Deck understands the word tool as beneficial, and he's like, fine, you come with me because you are a tool. And that's what you are to me throughout this journey, is a tool. And clearly that sets up the journey for the characterization of Deck and his personality to go from I see you as a tool to I see you as an equal. And it's great. It's really simple. It doesn't have to get any deeper than that. We've had relationships like that with, Ahab from Predator, Fire and Stone. So this isn't new, and it's great. It's good that we're getting like bits of that. And we get that off the cuff with this journey of theirs. We get Thea hanging off of the back of Deck as he's like doing all these wonderful traversals. He's like evading from these acid spitting worms in like these chasms, that he's running into, or he's swinging from vines and, evading these monsters. And it's really funny because you can't tell whether or not he's annoyed by everything, but it's really funny that he's just kind of going with it. At some points, he kind of just tosses her, and he's like, hey, is this Kalisk prince of some sorts? And she'll be like, yes or no. And it's just really funny how that works. But, they do their first hunt where they run into the character from the trailer, the monster, where it's like on its all fours. And it's like this tentacle worm that goes inside this horned rhino armor that kind of opens up like a Venus flytrap. The whole scene with that thing is awesome because moving on, they run into that creature, but it's standing in this field of this field of grass that is as sharp as like knives. It's like grass knives. I don't even know. It was kind of goofy at first, like grass knives, but it was awesome. It was kind of cool because it presented a really unique hurdle for the Predator. And hey, I mean, I had no idea what the budget was for this movie, so I mean, throw me as much interesting detail for this alien planet as you can. Like, I'm so down to just dive into all of it, right? So, okay, cool. Knife grass, and this creature is in it, right? The massive creature with the tentacle and the horn that opens up, right? And they're kind of figuring out like how to hunt it, you know? And throughout this, we get our first introduction to Bud. Now, Bud is a really interesting character because Bud was first shown, I think, on a poster and then a few Funko Pops and then a NECA figure reveal, and everyone was super nervous. They were like, "What is this? What is this Glub Shido? Like Baby Groot type thing in my Predator? Like, what is this?" Right? It is weird, but I'm here to tell you it's not that bad. And I'm not making excuses. I'm not, shilling because I had a great time. I truly think that Bud was the least worst thing that came out of Predator Badlands if we were to talk about like negatives. But we get introduced to Bud, and Bud is great. At first, he kind of plays off as like an annoying monkey that can have like this impenetrable armor kind of like an armadillo, and it kind of runs and moves like an armadillo too, and a monkey. It's like a monkey armadillo thing. It spins around, but it moves around too. And you'll see later in the film too, he does some incredible damage to the Weyland-Yutani bots. Like he's doing crazy, crazy, like throwing hands, man. He's throwing crazy hands. So we get introduced to both of those creatures at the same time with Deck and Thea in their journey. And it's really funny because Bud kind of provokes the creature, and we start seeing like how the creatures like interact with each other and chase each other, and we get a wonderful scene of Deck cutting the giant four-legged space rhino in half. And this might be the goriest and the coolest part of the entire film. And what he does is he throws his sword at the creature, like charging at him, into its mouth before it closes, and it cuts the creature in half, and Deck, standing in the middle, takes the creature's like momentum, crashing into him, and he grabs the creature's spine, and as the momentum of the creature moves forward because it was charging at him, he takes the spine, and the spine like gets ripped out of its like skin and flesh, and Deck holds its spine, and he just holds it and waves it up in the air like a trophy and just screams. It's incredible. Oh, it's crazy. We've never had a predator hunt scene like that before. So, that was like the very first like soy jack moment I had, dude. Honestly, like I was blown away. I was gripping on my hat that they gave me in the movie theater, and I was just like freaking out. It was good. It was gore. It was exactly what I wanted and what I got from reading the Dark Horse comics, and I was very satisfied. And you know what? Bud was in it, and Bud was great. I really liked Bud. I think you're going to hear that from me throughout this breakdown, but I thought Bud was perfect. I had a great time with Bud, and Bud did not at all hinder uh, my viewing experience for this film. But it was great. And the next creature that they fight is just as cool. I believe it's called the Luna monster, the Luna creature, Luna something. Oh, Luna monster, I think. So I'm just gonna call it the Luna monster. But they basically find the Luna monster, and what it is it's basically a giant barnacle with tentacles, 3 tentacles, and it moves around and grips like the trees, and it even has like the opportunity and ability to kind of like just step on the ground and move kind of like a tripod did from like War of the Worlds. And it's a really interesting creature, but we get an awesome fight scene with Deck fighting that thing too. And he's cutting down trees with his lightsaber thing, sword, and he's running on trees, and he's running on legs, and he's running on tentacles. He's really agile throughout this entire movie. It's awesome seeing the agility that Deck has in this movie. I'm just really amazed by the entire thing, honestly. Demetrius does a fantastic job at portraying Deck throughout this entire movie. Just as much as I think, I think Andy Serkis did with Caesar. So good on him. But we get some amazing action throughout this entire movie. And one thing I mentioned to my friend who I was watching it with, we're getting it in harsh daylight, and we're getting really solid action, man. It's almost mind blowing the quality of the VFX and the action is under harsh lighting with Deck and all these monsters. But yeah, dude, he's killing these animals. He's like taking them down, and he's doing it for food. He's hungry throughout this entire time. He makes that a vocal mention to Thea. He's like, I'm hungry. I need to eat. And him, Thea, and Bud all make camp. Like they make a little fire, and they get to know each other. It kind of looks like the one from like Django, like where they make the little camp in the fire, and they just eat I think the Luna monster. They eat the Luna monster, and it's sweet. Deck is cooking it. He offers it to Thea. Thea's like, I don't eat. And then, Deck gives it to Bud, and Bud eats it. But, then we get a little bit into the comedy of the movie. And I could see why some people could think it's very Marvel-y. The next, like scene where they're just kind of like bantering, and it's kind of funny because he's playing around with Bud, and I never once thought it was cringy. I thought it was really good. I thought it was truly a really fun way of seeing how like a predator like Deck would just go about a situation like this, because we've never spent this much time like that with a predator, and even if we did, uh it's hard to imagine like Jungle Hunter, like expressing and emoting and moving the way Deck is. But we're getting that with Deck here with Bud and his interaction with Thea, and leading up to them just going to bed so that they wake up in the morning and move on. And that's exactly what they do. They talk a little bit about before they wake up, Thea's sister. And I think this is around the time where we actually see glimpses of her. So we see his Thea's sister get made, and we see a big like villain presence is actually Mother from the Alien movies. So, the Mother system is very central to this movie. She's talking to Thea's sister throughout the entire film. And she's like asking her, she's like, is this Yaocha a problem? Is this Yaocha a problem? And once it does become a problem, she ends up rebooting Thea's sister so that she can handle the problem. And it's really cool because we get introduced to not just her, but her army of a bunch of Weyland-Yutani lookalike androids. And it's really cool. I think from recent interviews, we were told from Dan Trachtenberg that this is the farthest we've ever been in the franchise. I don't know if he took to account Alien Resurrections, but if so, it's cool to know that Weyland-Yutani is out there doing stuff around this time, even during that. But if it's before, then, it's also cool to see a really interesting time period in Weyland-Yutani's functionality where they're doing these things and sending out androids to these dangerous planets. And it's cool to see Thea's sister and Weyland-Yutani's involvement. It's awesome. It's Weyland-Yutani's my favorite evil corporation, and it's cool to see it the way it was throughout this entire movie. Truly, truly awesome. Truly awesome, dude. Honestly, it was great. And once they wake up, they actually end up leaving. They, as in Deck and Thea, and they actually leave uh, Bud behind. And this is after Bud initiates Deck into his clan by spitting on his face and leaving this what is called like this scent on him, right? So now Deck has this scent because Bud spat on him and indicted him into like his family, I guess. And Thea is mad throughout, the rest of this little journey that Deck just kind of leaves Bud asleep in their camp while he heads out to their journey to find the Kalisk. And this is important because they have a little moment under a waterfall, and Deck is like, hey, is this evidence like leading me to a Kalisk? And, you know, she's kind of like giving him attitude. She's like not answering. And she's like, oh, I'm kind of upset that you really left Bud out there. And that's really interesting because it starts playing with like emotions for Deck, and you start seeing how he's kind of like functioning and learning and trying to understand these emotions of these things that aren't just like the hunt or like, proving yourself to your clan, which Deck has made very like clear already that this is all so that he could be, approved by his father and loved by his clan. And that was really easy for Thea to understand, but it's really hard for Deck to understand everything else around him. So it's a really cool dynamic between them because it makes Deck feel very heroic, but very stubborn at the same time. And that's really cool to me because it really gives him a fault that I can really understand and relate to, but not personify the Predator too much because we're still trying to make him, like emphasize this culture and race that in itself is very complex, but very horrific too. Because he's hunting, he's ripping spines out, and we want to make that like really cool and adamant. And it's really cool. It's a really cool struggle and duality between them. So it's awesome. It's really, really awesome. And after this, after the little interaction under the waterfall, they actually do run into the Weyland-Yutani camp that kind of was the start of uh, Thea's journey, right? Because she ends up losing her legs in this camp, and they find them. They find them throughout their journey, just walking across the dead bodies of Weyland-Yutani androids and all this destruction that I guess was caused by the Kalisk in general. So they find their legs and they go inside this Weyland-Yutani repair, I don't know, tractor trailer, I guess. And it's really cool, actually. Like they stand there and it scans Thea and it just starts repairing her. Kind of in the way that the pregnancy uh C-section scene was done in Prometheus, where it was just kind of a bunch of these mechanical hands cutting and stitching. That's kind of what we were looking at here with stitching her lower and bottom half together. And it was great, dude. It was really, really cool to see, because throughout this part, we're actually getting a really cool comedic moment where Deck is like, "Oh, you're gonna watch me kill the Kalisk, and it's gonna be a really big honor." And you think that he's flattering her, because like you think that he's gonna be like, "It's an honor to do it with you," but then he says something like, "Oh, it's an honor for you," as in for you to witness me do this. And it was a really funny moment. My theater got a really good interaction and laugh out of that one, actually. So it was fantastic. It's really good humor in really good parts of the film that don't take you away too much. But we quickly actually U-turn this really funny moment, because what we realize is that Thea didn't double cross Deck, but is now telling him that like he needs to get out, because her sister is coming, and she's coming for the Kalisk, because they were gonna look for it too, but he needs to escape. And Deck, angry, thinking that she double crossed him, immediately just like is like, all right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this fast. So he runs out and he really quickly goes to town. We get a really cool callback to Predator 1987, where he grabs his sword and he does this massive explosion and he does this crazy, awesome Predator roar. And it took me back to the first movie, dude, when Arnold did the roar holding the torch. And it was great. It was amazing. It got me pumped. And you get that scene from the trailer where he holds his sword up and the explosion go off behind him. And it was great. It was awesome. I was glued to my seat, eyes to the screen. And right off the bat, the callus starts coming. You see the trees move kind of like King Kong, and the monster just appears right in front of him, and they go off. They go to town, dude. They fight one on one, and it's incredible. They do incredible things with the camera. The camera's in motion. They have the cameras moving and doing things that I thought only Marvel movies can do, but I'm watching a Predator movie do it. And it blew my mind, man. It was just it does like these comic book Dark Horse like panels where the Predator is running on the tail and chopping things off and using his gadgets and explosions to parry and deflect the creature, and the creature, and the way Dan shoots this movie too gives me some Gareth Edwards vibes, because he really knows how to make the Kalisk feel tall and menacing, especially while making the Predator seem heroic and agile as well. And it's incredible camera work. Camera work, directing, and the sound is incredible. And really quickly, you find out that the Kalisk can regenerate. And it looks great. The way it regenerates, you can see its membrane, and you could see its like skeletal system just kind of like form, in real time, right? Kind of like how Deadpool would form his regeneration. And it's really cool to see the Kalisk do that, actually. It was really cool to see the Kalisk do that. It did it really fast. There's a really great scene where the Predator Deck runs on the tail and does the slow-mo sword with, he's like leaping into the mouth and he cuts the head off of the Kalisk. And in one shot, as it's like tracking around him, you can see the callus regenerate. And right after that, it seems like, oh, the callus has the upper hand. What actually happens next is really cool. Uh, Thea's sister comes and stops the whole thing. And what she does is she uses a frost grenade that she found inside the ship that crashed from Deck, because Deck ejected himself off of the ship. So the ship crashes, and she and Wayland Yutani salvage it, and they end up finding these cryo grenades, and that cryo grenade is what she ends up using to stop the Callisk. And she freezes the Callisk and Deck and captures both of them and her sister Thea, moving us on to the last half, final third of the film, which is taking place at night. And it's great, but it's after this scene that I'm going to explain here now, because we get a lot of exposition inside what looks like a moving train, truck, something, all-terrain vehicle, Wayland Yutani. And, we have Deck captured on a chair or a table, and it's kind of scanning him, it's torturing him, all that good stuff. And Thea and her sister are there, and we have the standard villain talk, right? It actually does move like a Marvel movie. Wow. Like, I'm kind of realizing it now, but it's not a bad thing, actually. Like, the pacing is wonderful for this kind of thing. And it's a really great frame to embed on an IP. It just moves so swiftly, actually. But it's wonderful. Like it moves on, it moves great, it moves well. And the dialogue is fine. She's kind of just talking about, you know, uh, she's gonna do whatever she can for the company. The motivation behind these movies are super simple. Like it doesn't have to get more complicated than for the company and I'm a robot. So uh, it's really easy to immerse yourself to a lot of these situations in sci-fi for this type of lore for Alien and Predator, because it's really easy to get behind like the motivation of Thea's sister. And in the end of the day, she's not even really the standout character for this. It's Deck. And, her involvement as a villain is just the right amount of involved for her to complement Deck in the long run of this film, I think. And it makes this movie replayable for the reason that I'm watching an underdog do his thing. So, at the end, she leaves the room, and there's one Wayland Yutani guard, and we get another really funny comedic moment. One of my favorites here, actually, where Thea is speaking to Deck in Deck's language, and because of that, the Wayland Yutani soldier doesn't know what she's saying, so he's like, "What are you saying to him?" And she's like, "Oh, we're talking about what this device is." And he holds it and he's like, "What is it?" And she's like, speaking in his language. Deck says something back to her, and he's like, "It's a child's toy, but tell him it's a map." And she's like, he says it's a map. You just got to look into it. And we get a really funny shot of Thea's sister in the other room, and we see an explosion happen right behind her out of focus. And, and then we cut back into the room, and Thea's screaming at Deck. She's like, "That's a child's toy?" He's like, "Yes, for a predator, like for a young juvenile Yautja." And it was just really funny, that like young predators in Yautja Prime are playing with like these, hand grenades. But it's great. And Thea opens the back door, which is, you could see it's moving because it's like in an all-terrain vehicle of sorts. And she lets Deck loose, and Deck escapes. And he basically, falls through all this jungle foliage and out to a waterfall. And he does the Schwarzenegger Predator 1987 token waterfall dive that we also do in Predators. And I don't know if we do it in Prey. I think we do. I don't remember. Let me know in the comments. But we get another waterfall dive, and this time with Deck. And it's awesome. And after that, he wakes up and he finds his salvaged ship, and he goes in. And this is where I told you I was going to get back into why I was kind of upset that Deck never uses his helmet. But he unearths his brother Quay's helmet, and he looks at it, and he just kind of goes through a bunch of like anger motivational flashbacks, but he never once uses his brother's helmet, which I was kind of hoping he would. He ends up using a different helmet, which we'll get into, but he never once uses his helmet or his brother's helmet. After salvaging the rest of his tools from his crashed ship in order to go save Thea and to go hunt the Kalisk. But so transitions us to the final third of this film. And it's moving swiftly, like I said. It's a really well-paced film. You're getting a lot of really good uh, context without getting a lot of like useless information or a lot of boring blah blah from Predator Badlands. And it's great. It's moving swiftly. So let's move on. So the next end of this film, we actually start off with a very Schwarzenegger Predator 1987, even Prey gear up montage, but with Deck. And he's using all the things that he's evaded from now, like the slugs that shoot the acid from earlier and the little worm caterpillars that blow up, everything to his disposal. And he's making all these makeshift tools, and it's a really beautiful scene. I was grinning the entire time. I was watching a predator do all the stuff that Arnie was doing to fight him. And it's wonderful, man. When I was a kid, I grew up with a muscular disability, and I was never able to be very, athletic growing up. And I love that Predator's message was like, you didn't have to be athletic, you had to be cunning to solve most of your issues, regardless of how big or small they are. And it's really cool to see that same message translated, but this time with a predator, a Yautja, as the main, protagonist of this entire thing. It's just such a great, like, flip it on its head moment. And I truly think that it was just something that I was witnessing for the first time that truly, like, me as a fan made me go, wow, I feel like I'm watching my team win the World Series for the first time. What's that thing that George Lucas says? It's like poetry. It rhymes. And it absolutely was rhyming in Predator Badlands. So Deck ends up, gearing up, tooling for this one-man army Metal Gear Solid like invasion that he was going to plan in this, nighttime Weyland-Yutani warehouse that held all these creatures and where the Kalisk is, evidently. So by the end of him gearing up, sorry, excuse me. By the end of him gearing up, he ends up running into Bud, and Bud is laying down in this footprint that was left by the Kalisk. And at this point, the audience and Deck realize, oh shit, dude, that Bud is actually the creature's child, like the Kalisk child. Like that is the Kalisk's child, is Bud. And the Predator realizes this, and the Predator makes peace, adopting Bud into his clan by spitting on him the same way that he was spat on by Bud. And that was the last thing. Like that was absolutely the last thing that they needed was just was Bud, and we can move on. So we get a lot of context between Thea's sister and her ordering all of her soldiers to do like all these extra stuff. And like I said, she's a fine villain. Like she does what she has to do. She's not like, the evilest villain of all time for like a Weyland-Yutani character. But she's great. I truly think she's great. I think she's wonderful and she does the job. And she doesn't steal the highlight or ruin the highlight by any means throughout this entire movie, which is really nice. And Bud and Deck just go straight in, man. Like they're taking out Weyland soldiers left and right, and Bud is incredible, dude. Like he's moving around like a gorilla, and like a really agile gorilla. Like he's pouncing and destroying and ripping arms off, and he's kind of moving like Chewbacca did, like ripping arms off of like stormtroopers. It's incredible, dude. I really like the way Bud moves. I really like the way Bud was used in this movie. It didn't feel too much, and I bet Dan was really nervous actually with the way all of this was playing out. But I truly think that it worked at the end. And I'm really happy that I feel that way because I was really extra nervous with Bud, I think. I was nervous with a few things, and Bud was absolutely one of them. But happy to report his involvement, even as it gets deeper, was fine. And he's great. Bud was great. And watching him kill and destroy was awesome. Deck, we end up seeing he now has makeshift armor, and his armor was made off of what I believe was what he said was some type of bone, and I'm not a big fan of it. I really hope I know that we're gonna get action figures for it at some point, maybe, but I was not at all like super into it. I didn't really like the way it looked. I wasn't a big fan of just like the like everything. Honestly, I wasn't a big fan of everything. Uh, it just wasn't my favorite thing. I didn't really like the way it looked. I was really hoping that he would wear like his helmet, like I said, but we didn't get that, and it's fine. He still kicks ass throughout this entire section of the movie, and I'm really glad he does. Like he's moving around, he's ripping heads off, spines, doing stealth kills, and he's moving around like a video game. Uh, he ends up breaking Thea out. She's like, "Oh my god, you came back for me." He's like, "Yeah, I did." He breaks her out, and she handles herself. We get a really cool fight scene with her legs, literally just her legs, like they're moving around, they're doing flips, and they're at one point snapping necks, and it's funny. It's odd. I never thought I'd see something like that in a Predator film before. It works, I guess. It wasn't bad. It wasn't weird. It wasn't out of place. Maybe some people won't like it. I dug it. Super funny, and it's cool to see like a more advanced level of technology behind the androids that Wayland Yutani evidently create for themselves. And, Thea is one of them. So it was really cool to see her move the way she does. And they're just killing them left and right. They're like these Wei soldiers are cannon fodder to them. And it leads up to Thea uh letting the callus go. And we get an incredible giant monster, giant robot. We get a power loader. I don't until official news comes out of what exactly it is. I'm gonna call it a power loader. But we get power loader, Callus giant monster action, and it's great, dude. It is so fucking awesome. Like they're fighting, they're moving, and Deck is like on the back of the he's like on the back of the power loader, and he's kind of moving like Scarface moves in Predator Concrete Jungle when you're fighting the giant mechs. You're kind of like on its back, and you're kind of like ripping, like things out, like vents and tubes and stuff. That's what Deck is doing to the power loader, and it's cool, dude. Like it's cool watching the Callus and Deck both double team the power loader with Thea's sister inside, and they're just destroying it. And at one point, it ends with the Callus like ripping the top half of the power loader off of its waist, ripping it in half, and then just like ripping its arms off and smashing it, and then like roaring into the sky. It's a really beautiful scene. I really dug it. The entire thing. It was great. It was super good. And man, I it was just such a rush. It was such a great action-packed adventure. This movie truly gives you no time to breathe in a really good way, and it's just action beat per action beat per action beat, and Dan knocks it out of the park, dude. It was just great to see everything I saw the way I saw. It truly felt like I was reading a comic book. Uh, and that leads us to the end, right? And the Callus, destroys the giant power loader, and we get a moment between Thea's sister with the shoulder cannon on her, and she's gonna kill Thea, and then we stop that. I think. Uh, no, 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 no. Sorry. Uh, we get the Callus eating Thea's sister. And then we get a moment where Deck ends up taming the Callus because the Callus takes a whiff, like a big smell like whiff at Deck and realizes that her son, which is Bud, had spat on him before. And she goes, "Oh, you're cool. I'm going to like back off now." And during that, Thea's sister, who's inside the belly of the beast, uses one of those cryo grenades I mentioned earlier and freezes the Callus and kills it from the inside and truly kills it. Like we don't see it come back ever. Like kills it. And Thea's sister, which has been like melted in like the stomach acid, is now like bald and like she's like missing parts of her like arm and leg, and she has the Dex shoulder cannon on her shoulder and she's pointing it at Thea, and she's like saying a bunch of fucking mumbo jumbo, like who gives a fuck, right? And she's about to like aim it at her forehead and kill her sister, and then Deck comes to the scene and kills her, rips her head off and shit, and then takes the shoulder cannon off of her shoulder, and he says some shit like, "That's not yours." And it's awesome, dude. It's great. Super simple. And then he puts it on his shoulder. And now Deck is in possession of a shoulder cannon, which is great. It's good to know that he has one because AVP was a whole movie all about a shoulder cannon. So it's cool to know that he has one. And now he has to bring back proof of his hunt to his father so that he could earn his cloak. Not like cloak as in cape, but cloak as in actual physical, like invisibility cloak, and earn his respect. So at this point, he takes Thea, Bud, and the head of Thea's sister, which is the evidence trophy, to his ship, which he takes off and he leaves to Yautja Prime, which he goes to his father's clan tribe home, I guess. It's made of like skull and spines. It's really funny, actually. And he tells his dad, like he brings his trophy. He throws the skull, which has like a really cool Wayland Yutani logo on the forehead of Thea's sister, out to him. And instantly his father is like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You're disgracing us with this. What is this bullshit? Don't give me this." And Deck, now wearing new armor, the one you saw from the marketing from earlier, he's like, "What do you mean? Like this is like evidence. Like take it. Like take it." And his father's like, "Nah, like fuck you." And then we get to the scene where Deck is like, "Nah, I'm not going out without a fight." And he kills the two guards, which are two guards from Killer of Killers, by the way. And we're gonna talk about that tie-in soon once we're all set in stone with this. But it's crazy. He's moving crazy, right? He's moving around. He does a really cool scene where he holds his spear up, and he opens the spear, and it opens from both directions, and it kills both predator guards as the camera pans back to show that it's like clamped through one's neck and one's face, and it's awesome. And then he retracts it. They fall, and then he fights Father, and it's a really cool fight. At one point, you think that Father's going to get a cheeky run on him by turning invisible, and then Deck turns on his ship, and a bunch of dust clouds up the arena that they're fighting in, and the dust hits Father in his invisibility, starts moving around so you can kind of pinpoint where he is, and Deck is just moving crazy. He takes his father down, and then his father says something along the lines of like, maybe the right brother was spared. And it's kind of like a fuck you moment to Deck because Deck ends up like using the same like red laser wires that was used on him to like pin him down to the ground on his father. And he's like, "Nah, dude, like fuck you. Like you can't just tell me that. You can't just give me respect. I'm done with you. Like I don't want to be a part of this clan anymore because I have my own clan." And now that's his character progression because, now he lives with Bud, who is now much older. Bud now turns around from behind Father and takes a big old bite out of Father's head, killing Father. And Deck is just now like just standing there like, "Yeah, that's my Panthero, like that's my giant panther monster alien, gorilla thing." And Thea is there. Thea's just standing there, which is really sweet. I'm really excited to hopefully see Thea and Andy interact together. Different Wei models with, maybe different software types. I think it's really interesting to see. But, Deck now has a family. He has a family with Thea, his personal robot from Wayland Yutani, and Bud, who is his personal Kalisk, which is crazy. I guess that's the equivalent of owning an alien queen, right? Maybe. I don't know. Uh, but that makes Deck pretty cool. That makes him really, really cool. And the very end, we see a really big predator ship hover up, and Thea's like, friends of yours? And Deck is like, no, that's my mother. And I saw that and I turned to the person next to me and I was like, what? I was a little confused. I'm not gonna lie. I was taken back by that a little bit. I don't know what to think about that if that's a Killer of Killers tie-in or something. I'm not quite sure. But then the movie ends and that's it. That's Predator Badlands. And man, uh that was awesome. That was truly, truly awesome. I don't know what to say because I'm baffled. Again, I'm baffled that a movie like Predator Badlands exists the way it exists. It truly was a Marvel Predator film that felt like was rated R, but it wasn't because it wasn't human gore. And it just blew me away that that loophole uh made for just such a really cool movie. Like Dan Trachtenberg knows what he was doing. Props to Elle Fanning and Demetrius Kalamatangi, who I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That was just incredible. It was a great journey. I'm a little worried by how people are going to actually take uh, Bud's involvement and progression throughout the film. I'm a little nervous by that. I think more people are going to dislike it than I think are, but hopefully they don't dislike it too much. Oops, my phone dropped. Sorry about that. But I love it. Um, I really like Bud. I am officially a Bud fan. I think when the uh the NECA figures come out, I am not gonna hesitate to pick up Bud and Deck because I'm gonna remember this movie for a long time. I think this is gonna be a very replayable film, and I'm really excited to kind of get behind that because I want to rewatch this over and over because Predator One, Predator Two are super replayable for me. I don't watch Prey or Killer of Killers as much as I do Pred 1 2, but I see myself watching Badlands just as much as those two. And as a lifelong fan, I think I gotta give the honorable rating because I feel comfortable rating this film. Actually, I feel very comfortable rating it, uh, ranking it. Actually, uh, I want to rank it. It goes Predator, Predator Two, Badlands, Predators, Prey, uh, Killer of Killers, The Predator, and then AVP and AVPR live in their own bubble for me because I love those films. I'm net positive on both of those films always. They just kind of exist for me, but I'm net positive on them. And Badlands is top three, baby. I fucking love that shit. It's great. It's a good time. In terms of stories of all time, I don't know where it lands. Probably top 10 or 5, but it's great, dude. Like it's Dan did it, dude. I don't know. I'm just blown away. And it's the reason why I'm in production, in post production in the first place is, these movies, man, like all the stuff that I get to do. Like that's what I'm here for. That's what I love to do. It's truly like my jam. And I'm blessed by God and earth and all my connections and all the decisions and sacrifices I've made to have been able to see Predator Badlands early the way it did. So again, thank you to 20th Century and Disney for allowing me to be there and do this. This was a very, very nice experience. I love my hat. I love my mask. I love my keychain. Hoping to at some point, I'm going to be going to the more screenings, right? The fan early screenings. I hope I get a bag. I just want more Predator Badlands stuff. But I had a great time. I love this movie sincerely. Uh, Throughout the whole film, one thing I didn't mention that I forgot to mention was that Thea makes a really nice conversation with Deck I think twice about the wolf, on Earth, right? And throughout that conversation, I was like, "Oh, we're getting we're getting close to mentioning the wolf predator by name in a film where the structure, though it's very Marvel like, it's also tradition to be referencing larger worlds." And it was just really odd and funny. And Deck is my wolf, right? He is the alpha to his pack, and it was really sweet hearing Thea say it and seeing Deck understand it and regurgitate it in his journey. It was just really, really cool, man. I had a really great time with all the messages and the story behind this movie and the journey. It was just such a great time. I truly hope that if you're still listening to this, you've either seen it or you're already like, ready to watch it and have a really great time soaking in all those shots and explorations. And it felt like a really nice R-rated version of Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, which is great because it's not R-rated. It's PG-13. But that shit was gory as fuck, and I felt like it was, I felt like it really was rated R. So it was great. It was awesome. I had a great time. I just can't stop saying that, dude. Like it truly was a work of art for me. But I think that's enough for me. This video, I have no idea how long this video is, but I had a great time. I hope you did too. And I might make more videos just breaking it down, but I did want to be one of the first to just kind of go in it and be able to talk about my experience and break it down early, chronologically as best as I could. I know I'm missing out a lot of stuff, but I had truly only watched it now, like just once out of as of today, 10/28, October 28th. So I had seen it yesterday, which was the 27th, which was at the super secret screening that I went to uh, here in the West Coast. But yeah, it was great. I know I'm forgetting a lot, and I'm excited to see the stuff that I missed in my next screening, whenever that is. But for now, this was my review. Net positive. Uh, Great, good time. I'm hoping to see it again and again and again and again, and I hope it gets recognition of some sorts with awards, especially in VFX. I hope it with VFX because it was just such a true big feat to see it play the way it was. I felt like I was watching Planet of the Apes film again. And I want to hear what your thoughts are about any aspects or point of the film or what I'm talking about. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and let's talk more about Predator Badlands. Let me know what you think. Follow my Twitter and interact with me, and then we'll talk again soon. Bye bye.